right, Blake, without Googling it, who sings the song Wonderwall?
Toby, did you know that the Wonderwall is actually a term where the rain stops in a storm?
Welcome to the Church Gear Podcast, where we pull the tech out of the booth and onto the stage to share the most outlandish stories and hidden wisdom from the tech trenches. And now, here are your hosts.
I'm your host, Blake Hodges, a man who couldn't answer this question even if Toby's life depended on it. And I'm here with my co-host who couldn't name 10 Taylor Swift songs to save his life, Toby Walters.
I could totally name 10 Taylor Swift songs, but do you literally not know the song Wonderwall?
I know it's like
Today is gonna be the day
Toby,
that they're gonna throw it back.
You're maybe rip my in-ears out.
Shut up. You know that song?
Yes, I know the song. I don't know who it's by.
So it's Oasis.
Sure.
I
have no idea.
Oh my gosh.
You can tell me it's by Satan's big thumpy finger, and I'd be like, yep.
What if that's a band? What if you now inspired a like screamo punk band of Satan's big thumpy finger? This would be so great.
We should do, next time we need like a segment or a game, we should do band or not a band.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Well, we need to do like a real Bible verse or not.
I want to do both of these.
Did the Bible actually say this? So anyways, we're still on, and I'm sure our listeners are like, are you done talking about your book yet? No. I'm still talking about it.
We never will be.
This is partially my podcast, so I get to talk about whatever I want. Right?
There's some growth. We've finally moved from my podcast to partially my podcast.
So, yes, we're still in the book series. I wrote a book. If you haven't been listening, you haven't been tuning in, I wrote a book. It's called Sacred Spaces, Modern Production. And it's, simple strategies, fun stories from some of the most influential churches in America on how they execute production into principles and strategies that a church of any size and budget can execute.
Yeah, and don't worry. Much like this podcast, it isn't any wisdom from Toby. Toby's a good collector, so he collected a lot of great stuff.
I ride the coattails of many great men.
Yes, and see, like Toby rides their coattails, I ride Toby's coattails. It's real dirty down here in this dust, but we all get there. And this book is actually better than I expected. I'll have to give him that. And it was really nice how he's been busy all year, so he's going to write the sequel next year.
Sure. Today we're going to specifically talk about an idea I had. It kind of came to me and I was like, man, it'd be really cool if I could get a whole bunch of the just most brilliant minds in the church production space and just sort of have a mastermind of talking about what the future of church production might look like. And so I got almost 30 people to join on 3 different Zoom calls. We broke them up into 3. Mr. Justin Firesheets helped me put this together because if you listen to his episode on Connection, he knows everybody because he's such a great connector.
I'm still waiting for y'all to tell me in like 7 years, it's a long con, that his last name was never Firesheets.
That would be amazing. So we hosted these Zoom calls. I took a whole bunch of notes, and then I compiled that into the chapter of my book's last chapter on just the future of church production. And of course, it's all just an exercise in theory. Like none of us know what the future's actually going to be.
Which is funny because you're still very obsessed with predicting it. You love talking about the future.
Sure. My number one strength on Strength Finders was futuristic thinking.
And it was my number 2.
And now, Blake, I saw a little bit of into the future of church production last week.
Wait, you have a, what's the machine from Back to the Future?
The flux capacitor.
You have the flux capacitor?
In the DeLorean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I borrowed it from Zach Brady.
Nice.
Yeah, so I took the DeLorean up to Cincinnati, where our good friend Patrick Busher is at Crossroads Church, and they like to say it's the biggest church you've never heard of. Kind of like Highland says the same thing. I feel like everybody's heard of them now, but Crossroads is probably the 5th largest church in the country, and they do things like I've never seen. So they have built and installed what is now being deemed the Wonder Wall. That's why I started the episode with it.
I appreciate your ability to take some random nonsense and still tie it in.
You're welcome.
I didn't think you had that in you there.
So they have put up, it's a giant LED wall. First of all, it is a blow-through LED wall. Have you heard this terminology before?
What the heck does that mean?
So you can actually see through it. They can have lights behind it and shine through it. And
okay, hang on. Let's go to the pitch meeting of this.
Okay.
This LED wall is so great. You can just turn it off and pretend like it's not there. And
kind of.
That's, oh my gosh.
So,
okay.
Also, the floor of the stage is LED tiles.
Now that's cool.
So they can have sort of an infinite background that goes, from the top of the structure all the way down to the front of the screen. It's front of the stage, sorry. And then they have on each side 3 different movable walls that can come across. And the whole thing is built out to have AR and XR. So your perspective of the background will move as you view the subject on the stage or the camera. And if you're watching in person, if you're there, you're in a 3,000 seat auditorium. Obviously, the stage is LED, the backdrop is LED, so you can have kind of this immersive visual environment. But you're obviously going to see the people around you. You're going to see the seats. You're going to see the rest of the auditorium that's not LED. But if you're watching online, they have the capability to make everything the immersive visual environment. So if you want a pastor walking on water while he's telling the story of Jesus and Peter walking on the water, he can do that. And that's all you see. You see your pastor standing on water. So it's wild and it's awesome. Now, all the haters are going to be like, this is the worst use of funds ever. I just want to, shout out Crossroads for being futuristic thinking, as we're going to talk about this whole episode, but also like they're reaching tens of thousands of people with the gospel message every week, including, he said, 20,000 prisoners every weekend are watching Crossroads message. So,
Toby, I didn't know you were watching it from yourself. That's great.
I know. They let me out for the podcast, and then I have to go right back in. I get to stop and get tacos on the way, thankfully. But yeah, 100% in prison. So yeah, can you imagine all that, Blake? Did that slightly blow your mind?
I want to look at their Instagram like right now, just forget my job, which is most days, and just look and see if they've got like showing him walking on water, because that sounds incredible. I want to see this.
Yeah. So we will research after this episode.
Okay, so we will research after this episode, but we can't do it yet because we need to bring on the online minister of Cottonwood Creek Cottonwood Creek Church in Allen, Texas, and he's currently auditioning to replace Toby on this podcast when I buy church gear from him. Will Chapman. Will, welcome to the pod.
Hey, it's good to be here with y'all again.
Will,
how are y'all?
Have you heard about this wonder wall at Crossroads? Have you seen any of the footage so far?
I've seen some of the footage and things that are there, but it kind of reminds me of, now y'all know that I'm a U2 fan of the Spy Plane as well as the band, but U2 on their Songs of Experience tour, they did a very similar type of effect when they were doing those arena shows. They'd have the band in the inside of the LED, wall panel that they would lower down in the middle of the arena, and then depending on lighting and how they were doing things with the LED wall, they could make the band appear behind the LED wall. They could have the band interacting behind the LED wall with the front of the LED wall. And it gave it a really cool effect. But it's pretty amazing what you can do with a pixel pitch in LED walls and the minimum distance that people are watching that LED wall from. You can do some pretty cool effects with that. And U2 was the first, I guess you can say, big band that I saw do that. And it's cool to see others that are taking that technology and using it creatively, like Crossroads.
Yeah. And I just, I want to make a pitch for the church that the greatest show on earth should not be outside the church. Like, if at all possible, the greatest show on earth should be the gospel presentation. So I love what Crossroads is doing. They're, very cutting edge. They're doing some really cool things, and I don't judge them at all for it. I think it's awesome that they're doing that.
It is. I'm looking on their Instagram, and they're not showing off this LED wall.
Blake, I've got a insider's video that it's up on YouTube and all our, but I think our friends at Resi did a full walkthrough. And so, yeah, we'll look at it after this.
No, I need to see it now. Oh, they have AI Jesus. This is so funny. Okay. All right. Instagram down.
All right, Will. So for somebody that doesn't have production in their title at church, nor have you for a long time, you seem to still be incredibly involved in the production world. Now, you're a two-time loser here on the Church Gear podcast.
How dare you, Toby? A two-time winner.
So for anybody that has not heard of you before, can you give us, a very quick snapshot of your background? How'd you get your start in tech, and what led to your role today?
Yeah, my background is I started, like many church creatives, as a middle schooler serving at my church in my student ministry and in my church in AVL. And those adults took me under their wing, got me involved, and then there was opportunities at school. And then everywhere I went after that, I just stayed involved with it. I do have a background in IT in my undergraduate degree. I also have a Master of Divinity Theology degree. I've been in full-time ministry over 30 years in Oklahoma and Texas. And I'm also a certified trainer, speaker, and coach with the Maxwell Leadership Group. And so what I've been able to do at Cottonwood Creek over the last 21 years of being on staff there is basically start a media ministry, build it up, hand it off to others, build up another area, hand it off to others, and kind of go from there. And the place that I'm in right now, I'm kind of like a station manager where I take all of our content, I make sure it gets out to people, then I interact with those people as they interact with us. So that's kind of what I do in my background.
And have we confirmed or not yet whether your wife is in the mafia?
Well,
I haven't been able to. My wife is Italian, and right before she and I married, her grandmother came to me, and her full name is Rosa Piccoli Casizzi, is her how her name is kind of pronounced in Italian. But she said to me, "Don't hurt my granddaughter. If you do, I know people who will fit you for cement shoes." Wow. She walks away, and the pastor says, "Let's go." And I walk into the church to get married. So there's that.
Blake, this sounds familiar to your story, but yours would be, "Don't hurt my granddaughter. I know where a shotgun is."
Well, see, I also dated an Italian in high school, and man, the food was amazing. Does she cook good Italian food?
Absolutely. They've got their family sauce, all their family recipes. And I thought I knew what Italian was, but as soon as I got into this family, I'm telling you, I am in Italian heaven.
Dude, Boston is a city, not really my favorite, but I went to Little Italy. I could live in Little Italy. Mm-hmm. Like, it is the best Italian food of your life.
At least like 3 weeks until you eat yourself to death.
Oh, I don't know if I'm making it 2 weeks. Guys, this is a real story that I shouldn't tell. The last day we were there, we were like there for 4 days. I was sitting in the restaurant and I had eaten so much, my resting heart rate was 140. That's really bad.
That is terrible.
That's like a healthy person running hard. Mm-hmm. And I had to leave the restaurant and go breathe deeply because that's how much Italian food I had eaten.
Now, Blake, I feel like I already know the answer to this, but do you know the movie? Have you seen the movie Spaceballs?
Tech, yeah, I have.
Okay. So I'm just imagining you as Pizza the Hut.
Yes. Will, the fact that you're in such good physical form, married to an Italian, very, very impressive. All right, let's get back to futurism, though. We've diverted.
All right, Will. So you were part of this mastermind group where we discussed kind of this just idea of what might the future of church production look like. One thing that I feel like, we talked a lot about, and, Willow Creek kind of set the bar as one of them that set the bar, and it just kept pushing forward, bigger productions. And, at one point it was arguable Willow Creek was competing to be the greatest show on earth. Like what they did was world class. But we still have a handful of these, 7,000-8,000 seat auditoriums, and just the amount of production you have to do, the biggest show on earth. We get the sense that maybe we're trending away from the biggest show on earth. Have you gotten that sense? Like, do you feel like we're pulling back from the size and scope of production?
I feel like that it's probably something more of a refinement, maybe, of production and the scale of some of the churches. Kind of culture ebbs and flows, and sometimes, especially if you have the right leader at the right time in the right place, you can have a big congregation with a big auditorium and things like that. But sometimes as leadership changes, as culture changes, that is not as inviting as a place that's a little bit smaller. And so I'm not sure if it's completely gone of churches with 8,000-10,000 seat auditoriums, but I think we'll probably see fewer of those being built, especially in favor of some things that we continue to see happen. And quite a few churches have quite a bit of success with the multi-campus model.
Mm-hmm. And I know for myself, and I don't know if it's my generation or just me, I'm like, turn it up, like more lights, more haze, as long as they're not hitting me in the eye. But my kids who are teenagers now are like, man, it's too loud. There's too many lights. Have you experienced this at Cottonwood Creek? Have you seen the next generation actually wanting less, or is that just in my family?
And should Toby get a paternity test?
Yes, definitely.
Well, what I have seen is something that I would describe as we're going back to the Middle Ages.
What?
Now, I know that was kind of a bomb drop there, but here's what I mean. And I was talking about this a little bit last week or a couple of weeks ago at CFX with some people. I really think with this next generation, they're wanting to see purpose in what we're doing in the creative space. They don't want it to be loud for loud's sake. They don't want it to be bright for bright's sake. They don't want it to be busy for busy's sake. They want to know what the purpose is. And if you remember back in the Middle Ages, when the church was taking all of the skills and the artisans, and they were building these facilities to really incorporate. That's a very hard word for me to say.
Very early to be drinking, Will.
Yes, it is. To incorporate aspects of beauty, of architecture, of light, using acoustics to be able to help all the people in the church to be able to hear the voice from whether it was the priest or the bishop or whatever it was during that time. But all of those things were very purposeful. And the purpose of it is for you to come in and to be able to take your gaze off of self and to be able to understand God in a bigger, grander type scale. And so what I see is for the future is people having to understand why we have the creative arts and use them for purpose instead of just the wow factor. And I think that's what Gen Z is wanting to see. They want to see, why are we doing this? And they want to see purpose in using that LED wall to communicate, using the lights to communicate, using the way that you put the sound together to be able to communicate, or even the atmosphere of where everybody's sitting to communicate the truth of the gospel.
Thinking back to my, teenage and coming of age years, that there was no production before that. I was painfully bored by church. There was tradition, steeply held tradition. And when I experienced new things like, Vineyard and Maranatha, and then Hillsong came along, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest thing ever. Turn everything up all the way. Give me everything you could possibly imagine, because I'd never experienced anything like it. But yeah, now Gen Z, they're like, yeah, we've seen all your biggest show on earth. Like, I get what you're saying, Will.
Yeah, it's really a why. And what I love about it is that it's forcing us as church techs to remember those aspects of theater, those aspects of production that we forget a lot of times. And that is, what message, what moment are you trying to convey, allowing that message to be central, but then how do you support people understanding and connecting with that message? And the thing that I like about that is that you don't have to have a big budget to be able to think about church production that way. You just have to be purposeful in thinking about, what tools do I have and what can I do with those tools to best use them to convey the message?
Blake, how do you prefer it when you walk into a church? Do you want more? Do you want less? Like, you're firmly a millennial.
Yeah, as a 32 millennial, I feel very conflicted in this conversation, because I think depending upon the day, I'm like, let's have some hymns. I miss the old ways. Let's have all the lights on. I literally could, depending upon the day, go either direction. And because of that, I would just say, I wish we could permission every church to not feel pressured. Like, I don't know that every church has to be the greatest show on earth.
Sure.
But like, some churches probably should. And I like that we have so many different churches, because there's all the parts of the body. Right. So I think, yeah, depending upon the day, I see the purpose for all of it. And I think, Will, you're dead on that it's really about the why behind it. And like, Toby, when you mentioned LED walls, like, do we really need this? And then you talked about the person walking on water. Can you imagine being 10 years old, hearing a Bible story, and you're kind of watching it be created in front of you? Now you're locked in. You might actually, okay, here's the real honest truth. Every pastor is competing with this little black box, this little phone. So you might get the kid to actually look up off of their phone and pay attention.
It's true.
No, that's a really good point, because that's the whole aspect of it. If you're trying to create that immersive environment to be able to help people understand in that moment the the significance of Jesus walking on the water, the significance of Peter stepping out of the boat, the significance of Peter taking his eyes off of Jesus and then beginning to sink, and then Jesus reaching out and rescuing him when Peter calls out for help. You can really use all those aspects of production to be able to communicate that message. I mean, just look and see how The Chosen has impacted culture with what they've done on the small screen and even on the big screen. It's just taking those aspects and bringing them into the local church, but remembering that you don't have to have, VR, you don't have to have, XR, you don't have to have all of this stuff. Just take what you have and use it to be able to communicate the message. And that may mean for some, like I've been in some worship services before where they've had an artist on stage and they're just painting a picture of Jesus in that moment that the pastor is talking about who Jesus is, what did he do, what is he doing now, all this other kind of stuff. And then you're getting this portrait and this picture being painted, and it is a tremendously powerful moment. And then that picture is then hung out in the church lobby for people to see, to be able to remember that moment and that time. And so you can be as crazy or you can be as simple as you want. But the thing is and this is one of the biggest things y'all have heard me talk about before. It's really about the parable of the talents as church techs. And this is the thing that I harp on all the time. Don't be tech envious of that big church or that other thing of what they have. Take a look at what you have and the tools that God has provided you, and then use that to the absolute best of your ability to be able to communicate the message that Jesus came, he lived, he died, he rose again, and then trust God with how he may provide for those types of upgrades and all that kind of stuff in the future. But don't lose sight of the why, and don't lose sight of you have tools that God has given you. You best be using it in a way that glorifies him, or like we saw in the parable of the talents, he takes it away from one and gives it to the other if he doesn't use it the way that is glorifying to God.
And I think as technology is advancing, the playing field is getting leveled. And one of the ways in which I firmly am a believer that AI is starting to change the game for everybody. It's giving us access to, you're seeing AI Blake right now. Real Blake finally ate himself to death in Boston with Italian food. So I just replaced him with AI Blake. It's a little glitchy, but so was real Blake. Yeah, he's over there.
You
okay?
If I got to pick a way to die, eating so much food in Little Italy that I die.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be older, but that's pretty good.
Will, in what ways have you seen AI already come into the church production space, both in, well executed ways and maybe some ways?
Let's not spoil some things. You know what I'm saying? We got some secret things.
Okay, so don't tell the secrets that we already got from you, Will. But
oh my gosh, now you've outed him.
What ways are you seeing AI already come into play, and what ways, let's just play what if? Let's start thinking of, how might it change the game in the future?
AI is something that I have been dabbling a lot in. And what has really been a challenge to me is a challenge that my pastor gave to all of us as our staff here a few months ago. He said that AI is not going to replace us and it's not going to replace people, but people who don't use AI will be replaced by people who do.
Yeah.
And in the church production space, AI is already being used in an amazing way for something as simple as storyboarding. We're so used to going and running and gunning, taking our cameras, taking our iPhones or Androids or whatever we have and going and, shooting real quick on that video, coming back, trying to put something together and get it out there. Well, what church techs and many creatives are doing, they're saying, hey, here's a video that I want to shoot. Here's the message that I want to shoot. I want to try to convey it in a creative way. Here's some tools that I have. Storyboard out how I can shoot this. Enter the prompt. And then a few seconds later, you get out this storyboard, shot 1, scene 1, here's this. Shot 2, scene 1, here's this. Scene 2, shot 1, here's this. Here's the background. And then all of a sudden, you've got this storyboard that you can take out in a moment, shoot, and put together a really creative video, come back, edit it, and get it out very, very quickly. And so helping with that creative process and with that even production process is some of the things I've seen. I've seen people use AI, and I've even toyed with it a little bit of saying, here are all the tools that we have for this video shoot. How can we best use these tools to be as creative as we can? And then it'll start giving you all these ideas. Here's how you can do this. Here's how you can do this. Here's how you can do this. Think about it on the lighting side. Here's all the different lights that we have. Here's the stage dimensions that we have. What would be the best way to be able to arrange our lighting plot to be able to make sure that we've got good 3-point lighting, at least at our downstage center position? Boom. And then it throws you stuff. Think about audio. I've got all of these things in a room that's this size by this size. I've got all of these instruments. How can I best set it up in a stereo environment with a pan to where I am able to provide some separation in my mix without having to make it just one giant wall of sound? And then AI can give you some ideas. And so these are the things that I'm seeing that AI is doing. And the smart church creative is needing to understand AI, embrace AI, and then even sit down and start saving and coming up with prompts, or looking for prompts online, saving those prompts and using them for quick reference when they need something that's fast and on the go. So I see AI as a tremendous member of the creative and technical team now, but also even more so going into the future.
Yeah, I think, we talk science fiction. We watch, movies like The Matrix, and we think, oh, what could be in the future? Or, Back to the Future 2, Blake, where what do they put them into? Is it 2020?
Oh, I don't remember, but
so whatever the date was, we've blown past it now. And then we don't have flying cars yet. We don't have hoverboards.
Got self-driving cars.
That's true. So, we like to imagine things that maybe AI will do in the next 20 to 50 years. And a lot of that will happen in 3 centuries. But, some of the, it's a fun exercise in, like you said, storyboarding. I hadn't thought of that we storyboard here at Church Gear. And I don't know about you, Blake, I've never used AI to help me storyboard.
That is an interesting thought. And, sometimes it's not always that far out. The movie Her came out not that long ago.
Yep.
Ex Machina came out, both of these within the past 15 years. And you have people leaving their wives right now for their AI chatbot lover. I mean, sometimes the future comes at you fast.
I mean, not Will, because then he'd have cement shoes.
Exactly.
Will, one of the things I see every church I go to, almost every church, they give me a behind the scenes tour of their production setup, and then they show me this closet and they say, that's where we do live Spanish translation. And then I ask, have you toyed with AI yet? And they're all sort of on this fence of maybe we tried it, maybe we haven't. It's not quite there yet. I mean, fast forward to, it might even be today, or in 6 months, you can then have live language translation to any language. So, you're in Dallas, there is a whole smattering of different cultures and languages spoken all around you. So, the ability to come into a church and have hear it in your own language in real time. Are we there yet, Will? How close are we? What do you think?
We are there. And there are opportunities using even apps on your phone and other things for live translation, even if you're sitting in a moment. I also see people who take assisted hearing and all that kind of stuff to the next level with live translation and things like that happening with AI voice. There are also live streams that are happening now where there are multiple, I guess you could say, syncing AIs that are syncing the language to the video of the person who's there either preaching or singing, and it is their voice and it is another language. You're seeing this mostly in post-production, but there's some things that are continuing to come on in the live stream environment, especially if you've got some things set up with a provider or a plugin or something like that, where you've got a delay set in from the time that you're, capturing and encoding that, sending it through all the things you need to send it through before it actually goes out. And so those things are happening. But I do think what's going to happen is just like we've seen with AI, and I'm sure y'all know this already since you're both very, very smart, but AI has been around since the 1950s and even the 60s. And even yours truly here was doing AI programming in the early 90s as part of my undergraduate degree. And I wrote a whole AI program with a team of people for our big class project on an AI that could play dual deck pinochle. And that was in 1993, I believe, that we wrote that AI program. And so, but now what's happening, though, is that AI is going to continue to get more instead of a add-on feature in some of these video streaming and some of this other stuff. It's going to become a standard feature. And so that's where I see things going in the future for all types of video platforms, all types of live streaming platforms, is that feature, instead of it being an add-on that can be in some cases pretty expensive, it's going to be part of a base level type of a feature, and then some other kind of thing will take its place. But and that's just the maturation of technology. The more that technology matures, the less costs that it generally will be, and then it'll be available to more people.
Yeah.
See, Toby, much like how my pay was an add-on when I started and then eventually became the standard, AI is going to become the standard.
There you go. And I'm thinking, Will, one of the pushbacks that I can feel from our community is AI should not replace human beings, because we're here to make disciples, not have AI do everything for us. So, you could have AI tracking cameras. You can very soon probably have AI live mixing options, AI lighting design, but then you take all the humans, the Christ followers out of the equation. And so I think there will be some ethical decisions. You could speak into that, of what things, would be good use, what would not. It also helps level the playing field. A small church that has 2 volunteers can do a lot more. But there are also things that I'm thinking, church production leaders, what if you never had to schedule your volunteers ever again? What if AI did your volunteer scheduling for you? It's all of a sudden like, oh, I'll sign up for that right now, today. So what are some of those ways, Will, you kind of balance between, the ethical decision versus, oh, that'd be amazing?
Something that I have gotten in trouble for in the past is what my wife calls my gift of devil's advocacy. Or my gift of turning your own logic around on yourself. And something that I have begun to use a little bit, and when my wife's around, she'll pinch me or poke me if she thinks I'm taking this too far. But I've been around some people before. They'll say, well, we don't want to use AI because it takes, the people thing out of it. And I said, okay, so you don't want to use the AI tool. Okay. Well, then you should probably not use commentaries or books or things like that when you're preparing your Bible studies and your sermons. Whoa! Wait a minute, Will. What do you mean about that? I said, well, you say you don't want to use a tool that can help you be a better communicator, that can help you study faster, and that can help you do something. And so if tools are bad, then we need to get rid of all tools. Let's just get rid of them. And it's just you and the Bible. And some people like that and really believe that's how that they need to prepare. And that's absolutely great. They need to do what the Lord has called them to do in that moment. But if you can have a next level tool to help you study and prepare and create smarter, faster, better, sounds like an old 70s TV show. Just dated myself right there.
Well, there's a book called Smarter, Faster, Better by Charles Duhigg. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah. Yes. But that is really what it's talking about. And you've got to also understand, as you're doing AI is not a replacement for the Holy Spirit. And this is part of a project that we are doing right now at Cottonwood Creek. Is we are developing with a partner our own custom Christian worldview-based AI. And we're going to make it as a gift to our church and a gift to our community to be able to begin using it here very soon. But the purpose of that AI is to be able to help people, give them some biblical wisdom, theological wisdom, but eventually get to a point where we're going to ask them, this would be a great conversation to continue to have with a member of our staff, one of our leaders, one of our pastors. Would you mind giving us some information? And so we're wanting it to be enough of a value add that we can help somebody get some information, get some guidance that they want, but also connect them with a person. And that is the goal of, I think, what AI is to help us move faster, better, stronger, quicker, all those other things, but not take the Holy Spirit out of it to where we can see that we can generate that content that AI can do. We can look at it, we can pray over it, we can think about it, and we can tweak it and then throw it out there or use it in whatever way that we need to do. I think the real danger is that if AI, just like a commentary, just like a downloadable sermon outline, if that becomes your whole reason that you're serving, that you're doing these things, and you're not putting your thoughtful, prayerful time into it, then I think that is a disservice. And that's not only morally, ethically wrong, it's also a sin because you're not taking into account the high calling you have as a church leader. And so we got to be careful. It's important that each church and each leader and each church creative knows about the ethics of AI, but you shouldn't be afraid of it, just like people aren't afraid of using commentaries or thesauruses, Bible dictionaries, all this other kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But we need to use it in the proper way.
And I think just like any technology, the technology is amoral. It is just a tool, as you said. How you use it is, based on the wisdom of the Holy Spirit. I'm sure churches in the early 20th century were saying television is evil. Films are evil until we realized we can preach on TV and then, millions of people will hear the gospel. Okay, let's do that. And then the internet, same thing. AI is just
social media.
Yes, absolutely.
Social media is the same thing.
Yeah. Blake, I'm going to put a soapbox in front of you. Do you have some feelings here you want to talk about?
I just love that Will's coming for their throats. He's like, I'm going to take away your commentaries if you don't like AI. I mean, because he's not in Logos. He's not wrong with his logic there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's very fascinating.
Yeah.
And Will, also, to the people who are going, the AI is going to replace the church person, like as you're talking about there, like who they're talking to. Me and my wife have both used AI to work through some feelings. It would be great to have a Christian worldview AI. It would be great if it could sense, hey, this isn't going to be worked out here. You should talk to so-and-so in men's ministry. Like, that would be nice. It's not that it's replacing the human contact at church. It's saying there's a gap that they're not reaching out to that person. This bridge will get them closer to actually doing it. That's all perspective, semantics, but I believe it.
And one of the examples I've read about, and I was then convinced by the example, but the idea of mental health counseling that, first of all, we know how expensive it is. Not that they're, overcharging by any means.
It's extremely expensive.
It's extremely expensive. And also, most of the world doesn't have access to qualified mental health experts. But if you could suddenly give, let's say, 50% of the value of a, in-person mental health counselor to everybody in the world, does mental health just rising tide all across the world? Because now all of Earth has access to some basic good principles.
Yeah, you kind of have to think of it kind of like as a triage. Triage doctors and triage nurses and PAs and all that other kind of stuff. They're getting somebody in a emergency or in a critical situation, and they're doing something to be able to stabilize them. But that's not the end all be all of their recovery and the things that they need to be able to help them. In fact, my son right now is finishing up his master's degree and doing his licensing in Christian counseling. And one of the things that he's doing is he is a triage person for insurance companies, for hospitals, for others who are calling his counseling center. And he's saying, okay, what's going on here? What's happening? And he's even, talking with clients, what are you struggling with? He helps them with some very basic things, but then he connects them. Oops, sorry, I just hit the mic. No wonder, Blake, you may need to help Toby uncross his eyes. I just hit the mic there. That may have hurt him. But
this is what
did y'all
Will
hear hear
no
that?
longer has production in his title.
Yeah.
He's not
Yeah.
cool.
Because I just hit the mic here because I'm using my hands. But that triage type of a thing is what this AI can do. It can do that for the church tech. Think about it, what I just described with the storyboarding. Oh no, we just found out what we're going to do. You're panicking. Let's use AI to help us get a quick storyboard together. Then we can take that storyboard. Oh, I like this part of the storyboard. I like this part of the storyboard. Let's change this up. Let's do this. It's taking that same aspect into the mental health thing. And that's what our AI is basically essentially trying to do, is to help people as we're developing this to be able to help triage them, but connect them with the person who can help them take the steps toward recovery. That's the end all be all, which is a recovery process based on a relationship with Jesus Christ in the context of the body of Christ. And so those are things that we have to think about with AI. It's a tool. It is amoral, but we can train it. We can put guardrails on it to be able to help it be what we need it to be able to use those aspects that we see that Amazon, that Walmart, that Facebook, that all of these other AIs are doing to try to connect us with a product to get us to buy that product. Or think about in the sales industry with salespeople with Salesforce of how they have the customer relationship cycle to be able to get a customer from being interested in a product or service a little bit further along. And then finally, you're able to get them to be able to commit to, a purchase agreement or to buying that product. It's taking a lot of those same principles and applying it to ministry and developing those relationships to be able to give people enough value that they say, okay, hey, these people care about me. They're not asking for my info and they're giving me some valuable information. But then at some point, the AI says, okay, we've kind of reached the point where we need to here. Let's get you connected with a person. And we hope that we can earn enough trust with that value add that the AI made that they'll say, you know what? I'll give you my information and then we can help that person next in their journey. So that's how we're approaching it at Cottonwood Creek.
Yeah. I like it, Blake. I know you hate all things technology. I know you wish that we go back to the dark ages like Will was talking about originally.
All I've said is no, Toby, AI is not allowed to pray for you. That's where I drew the line.
Right.
Will, let's talk about AR, XR, VR, all these things that end in R. And I just wanted to make a pirate reference there.
Where's
R,
R2D2? We're getting all these R's.
In what unique ways could you maybe see AR and XR and VR engaging in the church community in the coming decades?
Well, I continue to see it as a great possibility of being more accessible to more churches. Right now, the platforms to be able to use, augmented reality or virtual reality are limited in some ways. And there used to be, I don't know if they're still around anymore. There was a VR church platform that was out there for a while to where you could use a whole bunch of GoPros all put together on this big globe, and you could create a VR environment, not only inside of your worship center, but also out in your lobby or whatever else that you wanted to do. But GoPro and other action cameras have just introduced a full 180 degree type camera to where now it only takes two cameras put together and you can have a full entire 360 degree virtual reality created instead of having to have a bunch of cameras and a globe or something like that. And so as I see technology continue to advance and become more accessible, I do think there's going to be opportunity to be able to do that, because as we continue to see the gaming community on Discord and other things online and them continuing to show that you can have authentic relationships in a virtual space and experiences in a virtual space, what they are learning more and more about is that the importance of connecting people in that virtual space in person, in a physical space. And I think that's what's driven more and more of these gaming arenas that have popped up all over the nation for esports. And we've got a really big one over here in Arlington, Texas, that are hosting esports stuff all the time. And I just think that the technology is still kind of new for churches, but I do think there'll be opportunities for some and others who feel called to in the future to be able to do VR, XR, things like that, to be able to do some of that. And there are already churches that are using XR with LED walls and things like that in their studio spaces. They're just taking the walls that they have used on their stages, have brought it into the studio, and have set up a very kind of Mandalorian type style set. And for those who don't know, the Disney show, The Mandalorian, a lot of that is shot not with green screen or blue screen in that chroma key effect, but with actual really, close pitch LED walls. And they're able to really put together and put the actors in this environment that they look around and they're surrounded by, the village on the planet of what they're at, or they can be in the Bible, in the Garden of Gethsemane with this beautiful high-res image, but standing in their studio. And so I think there's opportunities for that. It's just right now it's a bit expensive, but as the technology continues to mature, it'll make its way down to more and more people at different price points.
Yeah, I think the opportunity to, like you mentioned before, Blake, just bringing the scriptures to life visually. Could you say, obviously The Chosen has recreated a lot of the biblical scenes, but could you, through AI and through VR, utilize that technology to say, okay, we're talking about this parable, this scene in the Bible today,
right,
and I'm going to immerse myself in the environment. I'm going to preach from the Garden of Eden today. And, here's Adam and Eve. Obviously, we got to put some clothes on them. But, having conversations with biblical characters in AR, like that would be a wild idea. And obviously, as you said, Will, like guardrails are important, but to the point where you could have conversations with biblical characters, even potentially conversations with Jesus through AI mixed with VR experiences, like the impact, the power of that possibility. Also, the possibility that could go completely off the rails. It's just in such a way idea.
As we had to put some guardrails on Toby because he kept trying to call up Eve, Bathsheba. He was trying to see the scenes of Solomon's concubines. Also, guys, nope, I'm not going to say. A Bible verse was read last night in church youth group about Boaz and Ruth getting together.
Yeah.
Like in a literal sense. And I was like, the Bible is rated like MC-17. I cannot believe they said the phrase like went into her and bore a son. I was like, this is awkward.
Well, think about not that, but think about our friends that you were just thinking and mentioning about at Crossroads and other places. They're in the Cincinnati area and in the Louisville area. Think about the Ark experience. And a lot of people listening to this podcast may live around in that area or close enough in driving distance. And there's some like me who have heard about it and saved up and traveled and took my family there to be able to experience it. And that was a life-changing thing for me and my family to be able to go through what could have been what the inside of the ark looked like. It was built to the scale dimensions and all that other kind of stuff. But when you go inside of it, you see some of the symbolism, you see some of the things that we're not sure this is exactly how it happened, but it's all really good theology, that things that are there. It made the Bible, it made Genesis come alive to us in a way as adults that we hadn't experienced something like that unless you traveled to Israel or into Greece and some of the missionary journeys of Paul and seen some of those things. But that's what XR and what VR can do for all ages. And so I think the ability, and that's why I say I see things continuing to go back to the Middle Ages from the standpoint of build things and use things with purpose and not just for the wow factor. I think that in the future, XR and VR will be very purposefully used to be able to communicate the message and help people see and understand why the message in this time and place and context is so important, but also how it applies to us today and how it is timeless and meets us in our need right where we are in this day and time.
I love your point on having a why over a wow factor. I mean, poor Toby over here, there's no why for him. He doesn't have a wow factor.
I'm all wow is what you're about to say.
No. Man, Will, could you've dripped so much knowledge on us this whole episode. It's hard for me to even ask this, but I'd kind of like to get a tech takeaway from Will at this point, Toby.
Okay.
So, Will, what would you say as this whole AI conversation? Maybe you're talking to the AI skeptic because there's probably no reason to. I mean, if you're in, you're in. So, like, what would be your kind of tech takeaway in that lens of talking about the future of church production and the potential that AI could really help them out?
I would say the best way for a person who is skeptical about some of it to do is just a simple exercise. Sit down and write out what your personal ethics with AI are. Just make a list. This is how I believe it should be used. This is how I believe that I need to treat it. This is how I believe that that we implement it. All of these things, and put together that value sheet, that ethics sheet, and then begin using AI with those ethics and those things on some tasks that you think can help you. And it doesn't have to be, preparing a Bible study or something like that. It could just be, how can I best mic a drum set? How can I best mix a drum set in a stereo environment to be able to separate out some of the drum sounds instead of it being just a giant wall of mesh, coming at me? How can I sit down and storyboard? How can I sit down and use these lights that I have with this, with these hanging points, with this power, with this stage dimensions, and do things that way? And so write out your values, write out your ethics, and then use AI and apply that. And it'll help you learn, just like with commentaries. And this is a thing that I go back to. When I was in seminary in the late 90s, one of the things that we did in my biblical hermeneutics class, which is the study of interpreting the Bible, is how to properly use a commentary, how to properly approach a commentary, that it's not a substitute for the Holy Spirit, but it's to be able to help you be quicker, faster, smarter with your studies, so that as you're listening to the Holy Spirit, as you're preparing your Bible study, as you're preparing your sermon, devotion, or whatever else, you can have the tools that you need to be able to guide you in what the Lord is leading you to do. And that's what AI is. And so that's what I would encourage people to do who are skeptical or not sure about AI. Write out your values with AI, write out your own guardrails, write out your own ethics. And then once you have those down, then start using AI and apply those ethics and see how AI can help you be better, faster, stronger in what you do.
Toby, you should use AI more. I'd like you to be better, faster, and stronger. Let's pick the game up.
That would be quite impressive, because I'm incredibly better.
Oh, you can't even remember the words.
Wait, let me use AI real quick to know what I'm talking about here.
Oh, my goodness. Well, Will, we really appreciate you coming on. I know you're probably 3 layers deep in the earth to survive the Texas sun right now. So is there anything you want to plug, anything you want to point people towards as we wrap up today?
Yeah, I would just say check out my articles that I write on ChurchProduction.com. I write a lot of articles with different types of leadership principles, technical principles, all that kind of stuff. So ChurchProduction.com, and then just do a search on Will Chapman. That's with 2 L's, not 1. But I think I do show up even if you search it with 1 L in Will. And Chapman is P as in pizza, not chat, as we're doing right now. But do that, and hopefully those articles and those things will add some value to you, encourage you, inspire you as a church creative.
And my plug for this episode is, if you ever want to hear the absolute best thing we ever had to pull from the Church Gear podcast, you see Will in person, ask him about that story or us.
Okay.
Maybe that should be a Church Tech Confessional.
It should.
Which is about to happen right now. So, Will, thanks for joining this episode with us, man.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And now it's time for a Church Tech Confessional, where church production people confess the worst thing they've ever done in church production. Here's one now.
So I used to have a bunch of D&D Audio Technic D12 amplifiers, which you could play the game Pong on, which is a very fun game if you haven't played it. But I would walk out to all the amps and I would open Pong, lose the game, so the amps would say game over. And then I told the worship leader that if he ever saw the amps say game over, to let me know. So then he would see them all say game over in a panic and run to the booth, and I would try to act like something was wrong.
Hey, do you have your own church tech confessional that's, 45 seconds to 2 minutes? Send it to blake@churchgear.com, and you might just hear it on the podcast.
Thanks for hanging out with us. We hope to see you back next week for more absurd stories, tech takeaways, and overall buffoonery here at the Church Gear Studios.
All right, Blake. So again, we're talking about my book. We're actually wrapping this series with this episode, unless we decide to do a wrap-up episode, which we have not, but, just in case we decide to do in the future. Again, go to tobywalters.com or churchgear.com/TobyWalters. There's a whole chapter where I talk about this mastermind we had and all the ideas that came out of it, even pitch what a specific church vision might look like in 50 years. Vidget.
And this is a whole chapter on the future of church production. So like Toby saw the future, he had a crystal ball, and the lotto numbers for next week are in this episode.
Yes, they are.
Or in this chapter. So get the book.
Get the book.
Get the book.
Get the book.